All right, I'm going to start off by telling you the 3 secrets. I'm not going to wait till the very end of the video. I want you to know right up front what these 3 secrets are to painting loose, dynamic, gorgeous, free-looking watercolor portraits. Understand that while loose portrait work, the kind of work we all love looking at so much, made by modern portrait artists like Paulina Bright, Agnes Cecile, Jane-Beata, and Talia Stanton, appears completely spontaneous and quick with tons of energy and movement, but actually involves a fair bit of planning beforehand in order to create these pieces. And that may feel like, oh, planning? Great. But I think if you look at it the way I do, you'll realize that this gives so much hope because it means that one doesn't have to purely rely on inborn talent to allow us to create these incredible watercolor portraits. Rather, it allows us to hone our own process through planning, and that is a beautiful thing. Second, please know that at least when it comes to the style I, and probably you, enjoy the most because you clicked on this, the drawing abilities you've likely cultivated will come in really handy in your pursuit of making loose work. A second topic I'm going to explore a bit later in the video. This is an important one. If you start off loose and set your mind and your energy to a place of excitement and freedom and exploration and kind of playing, you will be much more capable of achieving loose portraiture or loose florals or loose whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in watercolor. So how do we get loose and feel free to express ourselves and play with our supplies when we're using expensive paper and we're like, oh no, that's 1 sheet down, 2 sheets down, 3 sheets down. Oh. You guys remember the Count, Sesame Street? Or was it Electric Company? I'm such a dork. How do you stay loose like that when you're stressing as you go through piece after piece of paper? Art, like anything else in life, is 100% a mental game. It is all about having control over our thoughts, taking our thoughts captive, examining them, examining the maladaptive thoughts we have and the ones that serve us, and trying to steer ourselves toward using the thoughts that serve us the best versus allowing ourselves to kind of like wallow in these unhealthy patterns of thinking that so many of us do, myself 100% included. So when I realize that I'm holding back and I'm stressing and I'm making tiny little marks on my paper because I'm afraid, one thing that I've learned to do is take 1 sheet of paper, use it quickly in a sort of almost what would seem like a wasteful manner, but still choosing to get something out of it. Put my brush strokes all over it, get it wet everywhere, charge the water with a bunch of pigment, do all kinds of things that say, this is mine, I chose to buy it, I'm going to go through it, and then I save it and I can use it later. I can paint over it, I can use it for gouache practice, I can use it for whatever. But if I'm afraid of doing something, I've learned it's important to just like fully attack it straight on, go hard on the paper, kind of show the paper who's boss. Okay, maybe that's really silly, but it achieves like the mindset that I'm going for as I go forward with my practice, which is, this is my paper, this is my hobby. I personally don't have a lot of hobbies. This is my main one, and it's where I am comfortable putting money because it's a passion and I expect it to grow. And I understand that I can only grow if I use the good supplies and use them with freedom and not having to be so tight and tense and placing every single mark on the paper so carefully. Does that make sense? I hope I'm conveying the idea that I'm intending to convey here because I think it's an important one. Let me clarify. I'm learning as I'm placing my brush strokes, or it's not for the purpose of wasting it. It's for the purpose of showing my mind that this is a tool and I'm going to use it and I can be free with it. And it's just an art supply and that's its purpose for existing. You know what I mean? So that goes back to the idea of getting our minds into a place where we can exert energy and feel free and flow with the excitement at the idea of exploration. Oh, and a bonus tip here right up front. A common misconception is that loose painting is fast painting. And in my experience, that is not true. You needn't slap the water and pigment down at lightning speed in order to have a piece that looks energetic and dynamic and beautiful. That free-looking loose portraiture. Because of what a good job these really good artists did at expressing that freedom and that looseness, it gave the impression to me that it had to be quick and it had to be without thought and with pure raw energy, using the creative side of the brain, not the analytical side of the brain. But what I have come to learn is that it isn't simply rapid fire speed just flowing out of them the first time they sit down to paint. It's that they have practiced and honed their skills so well that they're able to achieve that look. And the viewer is none the wiser. And that is the entire goal going forward with this channel, is getting there with my art and taking you guys along with me. Now, let me touch on something really quick here. Many of us feel almost crippled at times by the knowledge that our supplies are expensive, and the idea of genuinely using them means that we're going to go through them. If you intend to make finished pieces on cotton watercolor paper, then that's the paper you really need to practice on. That's because we can't practice on cellulose and expect to transition those same skills over to our cotton watercolor paper, because they require such a different style of painting altogether that it just doesn't work. The skills that you build aren't going to serve you on the other paper. You're going to be back to level 1 on the cotton paper, even if you got to level 5 on the cellulose paper. Like, it doesn't translate super easily back and forth. So save yourself some time, buy the good stuff. That's going to give the closest like one-to-one experience of learning. All right, so for today's video, what you're watching me do is create a piece that I am in love with. Not because it's perfect, not because it's the best I'll ever do, no. But what you're watching me do is just put together this piece, which encompasses the sort of piece I intended to make when I started painting. You'll see me using a bunch of techniques, negative painting techniques, a lot of wet on wet and charging with pigment into water, some abstract stuff, different aspects of portraiture and noticing the lighting. Mostly today, yes, we're watching the painting, but it isn't a tutorial or anything like that. It's merely me talking with you about loose portraiture and some initial tips and things that once I discovered these truths, I was completely blown away that I hadn't realized these things all along. And I've already talked to you about what they are initially. The 3 truths. To expound upon some of those as you watch me paint and eventually letter this piece with hand lettering, which is something I really enjoy doing and I'm relearning how to do. I initially learned it actually before I even started painting, and then hadn't used it in many years. And now I'm getting back into it because I think it's simply beautiful and it really goes along with the style of art I love the most, which is this loose portraiture, as well as sort of a collage-y style, which I'll get into more later, I'm sure. When I started painting in watercolor, which was the first kind of art I have ever made, and that was about 4 years ago now, I started painting at age 47, and I have a whole story about that that I've linked for you here in the eye if you want to watch after this video. But I had absolutely everything to learn. I knew zero, not one thing about art. I tell you this because if you are an absolute beginner, or if you are more advanced in watercolor and want to begin painting portraits or making loose portraits or adding in loose florals, we're going to go through all that kind of stuff. I can remember initially falling in love with the work of modern watercolor artists and knowing that this was the sort of watercolor I longed to make, like deep in my soul. And I didn't have a clue where to start, except that because I was 47 and not 18, I had some life experience that told me that there were going to be a number of steps that I would have to go through before I got there. Now, I'm sure if I would have begun taking classes or doing something of the sort, I would have learned more quickly and been able to go straight from learning some general art skills into making loose portraits. But I didn't do that. I learned on YouTube, and I'm grateful I did because it taught me far more than I believe I would have learned if I would have just jumped right into making the art of my dreams, right? So I'm very grateful for that. From there, however, I made the mistake of leaning into the structure of painting really stiff and precise portraiture because those were much more within my control. And don't we all love control? Yes, we do. With enough practice and repetitive first tracing and then learning drawing and painting and all of these things, I was eventually able to render portraits to look just like the person in the photo reference I'd chosen. And while this helped me to now initiate a sort of side business, painting commissions for people in my life and portraits to be the backdrop of my YouTube storytime videos, which I do have a handful of those up as well. It didn't do much to reach the goal that I had, which was to create beautiful, loose, colorful, free-feeling, dynamic art. Art that honors the true reason I started painting in the first place. Something else you can learn about in my initial storytime video on this channel. Speaking of which, this is my fervent goal. I plan to go after this type of painting like it's my job, which is why I've recently rebranded this channel from being Tema behind That Jewy Jesus Chick, whom I certainly still am, but now I'll be Tema McCraw, the artist behind Watercolor by McCraw, in order just to make it easier for people watching to understand what the heck it is that I'm actually doing here on YouTube. And so that I can take all of you guys along with me on this journey of moving into making the sort of art that I dream of making, and that you must as well if you're watching this video. Let's get back to the practical tips, shall we? My recommendation, if you want to start off loose, is to initiate your art making practice as often as you can with the mental attitude that says you're here purposely to make mistakes, to use your supplies, to get so familiar with them, so comfortable with the specific ones that you know that you love using, that you will discover you love using as you play with them more through play, through practicing everything. Practice painting standing up. Practice using your whole arm to paint. And then practice sitting down and kind of hunching over and using just the tip of the brush. Notice the difference in how you feel. Practice blasting your favorite music and just like rocking out, dancing before you start painting. Singing loudly. If you play an instrument, rock out on your instrument. Do whatever it is that gets you into that passionate place. Watch your favorite funny movie. Do something that gets you out of that, everything is so precious, my precious. You don't want to be like Gollum and his ring with your art supplies. You want to be like, bro, this is what I am here to do. I'm going to use this stuff. And it's not easy. So it's not like you're going to sit down tomorrow and suddenly start doing that. It's going to take a lot of practice because if you're anywhere near my age, you've spent half a century practicing being tight and uptight and stiff and judgmental of yourself and questioning everything you do. So that's the first thing to work on. Getting comfortable with the freedom of using your supplies, getting comfortable with using energetic brush strokes, using more than just your fingertips, clamping tight to the end of the brush closest to the bristles. Get used to taking big, deep breaths while you're painting. Get used to loving what you're doing, allowing yourself to love it. Now, you can be free and make beautiful, free, energetic, dynamic art that you love. And that's going to be a big piece of what I intend to focus on this channel going forward, because I want to be an expert, loose watercolor portrait artist. I want to get there, and I want to take you guys along with me. I want to love it. And so I want to start right now today and shed some of the tight painting stuff I've brought with me already just in the 4 years I've been making art and try to get rid of that. And if you guys want to also, plus learning all the skills along with me that are required to make this fun, beautiful kind of art, then definitely choose to subscribe. Definitely click the like button so that I know that you are interested in this too. And keep an eye out for my next video, which I'm going to do my best to bring these out as often as I can. I expect these longer ones like this won't be too terribly frequent, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. But my hope is to upload between that with shorter videos. So we'll see how it goes. I want YouTube to be joyful because that's the only way you'll enjoy watching it, right? Right. All right, you guys, thank you so much for your time today and for being with me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
This big black cloud is coming